Right, well, welcome to Cambridge. This is Howard's Orchids, here again. It's just about the end of January, so it's still winter, although we have had some quite pleasant days outside, which has brought the snowdrops out beautifully in the last week or so. I've been waiting actually to do this filming because I've got 3 different Coelogyne speciosas. Now, Coelogyne speciosa comes from sort of region of Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Sumatra, Borneo, Java. And they grow from an altitude of about 700 or 800 metres right up to 2,000 metres. So they're very tolerant of a wide range of temperature conditions. And I find they do really well in here. The first one that I got was this one. Now this is probably the most typical form of Coelogyne speciosa, which was very kindly given to me by my friend Hugh a few years ago. It even came in this lovely little basket that he'd made, growing in, I think, mostly sphagnum moss, because they like to be kept quite moist most of the year. This is probably one of the most typical forms of this species. It has this beautiful flower with very delicate markings to it. And Coelogyne speciosa is marvellous in that it's fairly compact and it quite quickly forms a really nice clump. And the flowers are also sequential blooming. So each flower spike will produce 1 and then 2 and then possibly 3 flowers in succession over a period. They will also flower intermittently right through the year. So in fact, because I've now got 3 different forms of this species, I have flowers open almost every day of the year, which is lovely. This is one of the old leaves, so don't take any notice of that. In a few days it will just drop off cleanly by itself. But you can see here, this has got a flower spike there, 1 there, another one here, and 2 more here. So after growing it for 2 or 3 years, you end up with really quite a decent plant that produces a succession of flowers. Very good value indeed. And I've got 2 more of these. Having been successful with this one, I then went on to purchase this one a few years ago. And this is Coelogyne speciosa albescens, which has, I think, these most beautiful greenish flowers with a white lip, really subtly marked. This one, for me, seems to grow a bit less vigorously. I did have it in a pot, but having been so successful growing in the basket that Hugh gave me it in, I thought, well, I'll do the same. You know, once you've had the success in one sort of plant, why not sort of expand and just build on your successes? And as soon as I took it out of the pot and put it in the basket, where I guess it gets lots of air movement, and you can see the roots are beginning to grow on the outside of the basket, it started really coming on really well. So this has only been in the basket since last year, last April, in fact. And again, this is one of the oldest leaves, and here, so they'll be dropping off soon. And then, just before Christmas, I bought another one to add to my collection, and this is Coelogyne speciosa burnum, which has these sort of salmon-coloured flowers. This one's a bit old. You can see it's been out for quite a while. Individually, each flower lasts about 2 weeks, possibly a little bit more, so they're pretty long-lasting. On the internet it says that they sometimes have a sort of scent, but I don't think it's a very pleasant scent. And let me just have another sniff of this one. I can't smell anything at all, so if it's not a particularly pleasant scent, maybe that's a good thing. So I now have these 3 different colour forms, and in fact there are dozens of different forms of Coelogyne speciosa. Some people, and I'm not going to go into that here because I'm really only interested in growing beautiful orchids, the naming and nomenclature and whether or not they're species or subspecies is, you know, outside my sort of field of interest. Some people might call this a subspecies, I don't really know. But there are lots of different forms of Coelogyne speciosa. So if you do like growing cool to intermediate growing Coelogynes, Coelogyne speciosa is a fantastic variety to grow. This one appears to be growing fairly largely, so I'd imagine it's going to be similar in stature to the first one that I showed you. And the reason that I say they're such an ideal Coelogyne to grow because they're not too big is because there are a lot of other Coelogynes, and I've got several that are beginning to take up an awful lot of room, such as this one, which is Coelogyne tomentosa. I'll just bring it over so you can see it. Now, see what I mean? This is a beautiful, vigorous growing Coelogyne. It's a lovely plant. It flowers over quite a long period in the summer with very beautiful sweet scent, so that's why I grow it. But it's very vigorous and it quickly grows into a really huge plant. Another orchid that I really wanted to show you today is this. This is a primary hybrid, in other words a hybrid between two separate species. This is Vanda falcata, which a lot of people used to and a lot of people still call Neophynetia falcata or Neophynetia falcata, depending upon how you say it, crossed with Vanda coerulea. Vanda coerulea is a beautiful, very delicately coloured in the wild Vanda that comes from sort of higher altitudes, so it's not as warm growing as many Vandas. And the well-known Neophynetia falcata, which is noted for its beautiful scent. Now this hybrid combines the beautiful scent of Neophynetia falcata, although it's not very strong in here today because it's not very warm, but in the summer when it flowers, and it flowers at different times of the year, the scent is much stronger. And the beautiful, delicate blue colouring of Vanda coerulea. So this is a really wonderful hybrid. And unlike Vandas, which tend to sort of grow up and up on the stem and maybe produce side shoots from the base eventually, this behaves much more like a Neophynetia in that it produces lots of shoots from quite down near the base. So it quite quickly, and I've had this for 2 years now, it quite quickly forms quite a bushy plant. So when these hopefully have developed sufficiently for them to become flowering size, this is probably capable of producing a marvellous display. Now, just before I started filming, I did look this up, and it is not a very widely available hybrid, unfortunately, but if you ever do get the chance to acquire one of these, and you like this sort of delicate scented orchid, this is a really fantastic plant to have. Now, I'm going to finish up today because it is winter, and although there are lots of plants that are going to be coming into flower soon, there isn't a huge selection. But this is Phalaenopsis thailandica. Now, I've had this for at least 7 or 8 years, a long time, as you can see. It's growing on this piece of cork bark, and the roots have grown all the way around it. It has this really quite attractive sort of bluey-green leaves, and over the years it's clumped up and formed this sort of quite tight mass of leaves, which, to be honest, doesn't make a very elegant or attractive plant. But I'm sure it's quite typical of the way that it would grow in the wild. But the redeeming feature is the fact that it has these tiny little miniature Phalaenopsis flowers with very delicate sort of browny, pinky markings on the lip. And you can see it's also quite free flowering. This has got, oh, I don't know, I won't count them, maybe nearly a dozen flower spikes, which is the best it's ever done. And they last maybe 2 or 3 weeks individually. Although I see that one at the tip here is aborted and there's one over here, so I'm not quite sure why that is. It has been a problem in previous years, but so far this year it does seem to be clothed with a really nice number of flowers to come. Now I'm really chuffed with this. This is the first time this has flowered for me. This is Restrepia jesupiana, one of the few yellow-flowered Restrepias that there is. Look at that, exquisite, tiny little yellow flowers. They've literally only opened today. This is the first time they've opened. That's why I wasn't expecting to be able to film it. I've got quite a few Restrepias. They're miniature orchids and they have a huge advantage that they're cool growing. So if you have cool conditions, that's why I keep them over this end of the greenhouse where it's sort of furthest away from the heat and they stay as cool as possible. But if you like very delicate, beautiful little flowers that you can examine exquisitely with very strong reading glasses or a lens, Restrepias are beautiful orchids to grow, and there are so many of them you could create a huge collection of them. Anyway, so I thought I'd show you Restrepia jesupiana, and thank you very much for watching me today. I hope you've enjoyed looking at some of the new orchids that I've got in bloom at the moment. There's always something coming along, and that's one of the joys of collecting orchids. There's such a world out there of collecting to be involved with. And I hope to see you in the next video.